Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is The Raptor, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This is my first quote-unquote reaction video that I'm not doing completely blind, because we are not looking at a new episode of Death Battle this time. Instead, we are looking at Batman vs. Spider-Man from all the way back in Season 1. This literally came out in 2012, almost 12 full years ago, which is insane to think it's been that long. Like, it's definitely been a long time, but it's been quite a long time since this episode, and it's absolutely crazy to think about. But yeah, this kind of video I was kind of thinking about doing for quite a while, but I never really got around to it. In fact, I was thinking about doing something similar for the first two Goku vs. Superman episodes when the third one was being announced, like right after it got announced. But, you know, then the episode actually came out and I didn't really get around to it, so I kind of just scrapped it. But I wanted to do it with this episode in particular, one, because I love both of these characters. They're two of my favorite characters that have ever been used on Death Battle, period. And two, which is kind of a tie-in point, I guess, this was my first Death Battle I ever saw. Literally my first one. When I first saw this, I didn't know what Death Battle was. I didn't really use YouTube that much. I certainly didn't have a channel or anything. So I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. I just saw, hey, it's Batman and Spider-Man. I guess I looked up some similar videos or something because this was in my recommended. I just decided to check it out. And of course, you know, the rest is history. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that while also looking back at this episode and thinking, you know, what I think it does good, what I think it doesn't do so good, you know, all that stuff, and, you know, kind of give a little bit of a retrospective on it. I just thought it'd be fun and interesting. You know, I've watched this so many times at this point, but never with this kind of mindset, so I wanted to kind of see how it goes. And, you know, I might do more of these if this gets good reception, but either way, I really wanted to do it for this episode in particular. So even if it's just this one episode that I'll do this for, I think that's perfectly fine. There's probably going to be a little more stopping and starting, maybe even some skipping around than, you know, compared to normal reaction videos, because I really want to focus on what I want to focus on. But other than that, yeah, we're just going to watch this video and see what I got to say. So without further ado, let's get started. The old Death Battle logo has such nostalgia to it. It's great.
They're the guardians of the night, the superhuman saviors of
well, at this point, they can go out whenever, but
Bruce
fair
Wayne,
enough.
The Batman.
And Peter Parker, the Spider-Man.
It's no secret that given time for prep, both Batman and Spider-Man can defeat pretty much any opponent.
Which
Yeah,
is why
that's kind of the
we're
way
pitting
they're
them
written.
against each other with only their standard equipment, gladiator style.
I think it was actually a really good move on Death Battle's part to put this disclaimer in front of this battle specifically, because for some people, the strategic nature of both Batman and Spider-Man in and out of their battles is a really big part of their character, a really big part of who they are. So if you're a really big Batman fan in particular, and you're thinking, oh, well, you know, Batman has to win because of his prep time, like that's just what he does, you know, you might be going into this battle with the wrong idea of what they're trying to do. And the same goes for Spider-Man, you know, he's at his best when he can like take some time outside of a battle, analyze what he has to do, and then come back and fight them again, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's a really good thing that they kind of say, you know, to be as unbiased as possible, we're just doing this, you know, with no prep time involved, with no extra stuff. It's just one-on-one fight, random encounter, because for these characters especially, even though they did like 22 episodes before this point, for these characters especially, you might be thinking, well, are they going to include that kind of stuff? But, you know, that's obviously not what Death Battle is. So I think it's really good that they did that.
The Dark Knight is a master of the shadows, using intimidation as
And yeah,
a
back
weapon
then,
to
they just
control
really
the
like
streets of Gotham
went
City.
into
You know you're
things
doing something
very
right when people
quickly.
are terrified at just
You know,
your
no
shadow.
build up
After
whatsoever.
his parents were murdered by a common thug, Bruce Wayne dedicated his life to fighting the criminal underworld. He achieved 12 master degrees, studied 127 martial
Yeah, they really
arts,
start
and
rattling him
perfected
off.
escape artistry. Given enough time, he can escape any conceivable trap.
It was at this point, I should say, when I first watched this video, where I was starting to put together exactly what Death Battle was and what they were trying to do. Because when you just click something that says Death Battle, you know, you kind of anticipate there's going to be some fight element to it. But other than that, you're not really sure. So it was at this point where I think it really started to click for me, like, oh, like, they're actually trying to go like a big deep dive into these characters. They're trying to see who would win a fight, you know, to the best of their ability. And that was honestly probably the thing that made me stick with Death Battle. A lot of people love the animations, but for me, it's like, who would win in a fight is something that I was always thinking about well before I ever heard of Death Battle or anything. So the fact that there was a whole show dedicated to this, like, I think that's really why I decided to stick with it. If it was like just animations and like just for fun or whatever, I don't think I'd be as invested in it as I am today. Because for me, who would win, like, that's the stuff that I really latched onto.
That belt has pretty much everything. Grappling hook, explosives,
yeah, Batman is all about just rattling stuff off.
Notable gadgets include a gas mask, tear gas, smoke pellets, a kryptonite ring, remote detonated plastic explosives, and his trademark grapple gun. He also carries a large supply of collapsible shurikens.
It is a little sad that aside from the Batsuit, and I guess the Batarangs to some extent, you don't really get like a big dive into what a lot of these gadgets are really capable of, because an analysis should still be an analysis, you know, like you still want to try to say how good these gadgets are and not just list what they are, because that doesn't tell you a whole lot, right? At least in some instances. And even nowadays, like there are still episodes like the most recent Link versus Cloud, where if you rewatch Link's analysis, like there is not a lot of focus on who Link is as a character, because you need to talk a lot about his inventory. He has so much, and you need to devote a lot of time to just rattling stuff off. Obviously, I still think that's better written than something like this, where they didn't have as much time and like they really needed to talk about a lot of stuff. But I think Batman is another example of something where you do need to focus a lot on making sure you cover everything. So I think spreading Batman a little thin in this case is a little excusable, but again, it would still be better if they could go a little more in depth for what the capabilities of his technology are.
The Batarangs, and if
yeah, even for the Batarangs, it's just what the specific types are.
Several types, like electric shock,
nothing in terms of like how powerful they are.
Despite having the build of an Olympic athlete, the Cape Crusader's greatest feats are attributed to his.
But I do like how they go into this, because it's still important to Batman.
And memorize the smallest details, even the shape of a cheek he's punched. And while Batman is only human, his achievements stand among gods.
He's a founding member of the team of superheroes known as the Justice League, and he's even fought Superman.
This is another kind of thing that Death Battle did back in the day, where they were very vague when it came to things, but still also very accurate. Like those points about Batman's achievements standing among gods and him fighting Superman, like that's all true. Like that is all very true. And the more you read Batman comics, and especially like the crossover comics and like Justice League and all that, the more true you realize those things are. So from that perspective, you could be thinking, oh yeah, like they must have done a lot of research. But at the same time, you know, they're vague enough that you can't know for sure. Like you don't know how much research they had to do in order to come to these kinds of conclusions. And of course, we know that their research capabilities were a lot more limited back in the day. So, you know, when you're saying things that are this vague, it is difficult to tell if they've done as much research as they probably would prefer that you think they have done. But I do think nowadays it is good that they, you know, actually go into a lot more of the specifics to show that, yes, we have read all this stuff, we've analyzed all this stuff, as opposed to just saying, oh, Batman has fought Superman, and they're not talking about any individual instance. Because like saying just Batman fought Superman, like that could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, and that's something where you kind of want more information on that, you know?
But while Wayne has no exploitable weaknesses, he is not perfect. His mental stability,
and they used to have a little weaknesses tab too, yeah.
Well, let's see. His parents were killed in front of him as a child. He uses his money to
yeah, no, he is insane. He is certifiably insane, but he's still a good guy, so it's fine.
Yeah, he's clearly not all there.
But he is a survivor. He endured being broken in half, fighting the other members of the Justice
League. It is still good they go over this stuff, especially stuff like this that you might not know, or the casual viewers might not know.
Yet he somehow pulled through every time.
Why? Because he's the goddamn Batman.
Hell yeah. Still love Batman, and they use this as the transition. That's great. Now we move to Spider-Man.
The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man protects the streets of New York City.
Once Peter Parker was a wimpy nerd with no friends. Then he got bit by a radioactive spider that gave him weird bug powers. And now he's a radioactive superhero with no friends. Though after some practice and superheroing, he finally got himself laid. A lot, actually.
That's something I kind of pride myself in having known beforehand because, you know, as big of a Batman Spider-Man fan as I was still learning new things about the characters throughout the analyses. But as soon as this popped up, I'm like, yes, that's 100% true. I definitely know about that. So, you know, back then when I was watching, I was very happy about that.
You know, if he was so smart.
Oh, here we go.
Web shoot out of his butt like a real spider?
No. First, it's not their butt.
Wait for it.
Spider-Man, grab some webs like a spider can.
See, here's the thing that's really interesting to me, because if Death Battle were to make a joke of this caliber, like today, I don't know if I would find it funny. Like, there have been some jokes that I feel like are kind of on this caliber where, like, I definitely don't find them funny, like I find them a little immature. But I remember when I was watching this episode for the first time, I loved this joke, and I still find it funny, I think, because I loved it before. So that makes me think, like, have my expectations changed? Like, they probably have a little bit in terms of, like, what I expect from the writing. I just know, like, for some reason, yeah, I like this one still, just because I remember enjoying it before. Maybe that's a super unpopular opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe no one likes this joke, but I remember I liked it, so I still get some enjoyment out of it.
Each web shooter cartridge can hold a large amount of pressurized web fluid.
And so can his girlfriends. I'll be here all week.
Now that is a joke I did not understand my very first time watching. I was too pure. I miss my youth.
And features a rotating carousel.
Yeah, we even
to
see some more
replace the
specific stats, like webbing strong enough to restrain the Hulk, you know? And even here, yeah, top strength, top speed. I guess because his powers are a little more basic. At least his more basic powers, you can go into more specifics. Whereas with Batman, it was a ton of gadgets, you know?
Suck it, Denver!
Also, by altering his body's electron attraction, Spider-Man can crawl along any surface.
It's cool how they go into the specifics of how that works, or how the comics say that
It
works.
acts kind of like a warning signal, like caller ID when your ex-wife's calling for alimony.
Actually, the Spider Sense is much more than a simple alarm. It gives Peter omnipresent
It's kind of sad we don't
detection
get
of
this
his
much
surroundings.
detail for
This is how he
Batman,
swings
you
through
know?
New York without looking where he shoots
But there's
his
just so
webs.
much to
And
cover.
unlike his human senses, it is not affected by gases and toxins unless specifically tailored to the Spider Sense
That was
itself.
cool to learn.
However,
I
it's up to
definitely learned that
Spider-Man
from
to
Death
recognize
Battle.
and react to its warnings, so it can be tricked if he doesn't think he's in danger.
Yeah.
His unique martial art, the Way of the Spider, utilizes the Spider Sense to its fullest.
Yeah, they
Spider-Man
really
can
go a
toe-to-toe
lot
with
into the
most
Spider
advanced
Sense.
masters of combat, even while blindfolded.
No wonder other superheroes don't like this guy. I mean, the friggin'
And even some, like,
Spider-Sense
random
does
stuff, like
everything
Destined
for him.
Teacher of
Speaking
Hope
of which,
Summers, like,
somehow
they
Spider-Man
just throw
once
that
tried to
in.
join the
Why not,
Justice
you know?
League, but was rejected by Batman.
Ouch. I bet he wishes he could fight old bats in a
Yeah,
battle
this
to
was
the death.
funny.
Oh, wait!
Yeah.
For all his amazing powers, Spider-Man is not invincible. His bright and colorful costume makes stealth difficult, his durability has limits, and the oddly specific ethyl chloride pesticide
Yeah,
is his
that's not something they need to bring
Also,
up,
any
but
enemy with speed
they want to be
comparable
thorough,
his
as thorough as they
outmatch
can
his
be.
Spider Sense.
Still, if those are his only limitations, how come sometimes he gets shot by a stray bullet?
Lazy writing.
Well, at least they recognize what anti-feats are,
Who
even
are
back
you?
then.
You know who I am.
I do.
Your friendly neighborhood
I still love Spider-Man 1, mostly for the Green Goblin.
Alright, the combatants are set.
So yeah, those are the analyses for the characters. Obviously, you know, it does show its age, but I still think, you know, they went into enough detail, or they tried to go into enough detail for the right things. Of course, for Batman, there's the quantity side of things, like all the gadgets that he has, and for Spider-Man, there's more quality side of things. Like, he still has a decent amount of powers, but you can actually talk about, you know, his top strength or his top speed, or at least what they determined was top strength and top speed. So that was really nice to see. And I still do appreciate how they were trying to talk about things that maybe not everybody knew, that not all of the casual viewers knew. Like, if you've read every single Batman or Spider-Man comic up to this point, there's not much they can surprise you on. But in terms of, like, casual viewers, I remember that, you know, when I was first watching it, there was stuff that I was surprised by, stuff that I was learning. And that's one of the biggest draws for Death Battle for me, is that I will always learn something new. So I appreciate that even back then, that was one of the big goals for the analyses. So that was nice. But now we get to the fight. Let's see what happens there. Yeah, very, very standard so far.
Black belt and stupid if you think you're gonna beat me.
You just get audio clips. But it still nails Spidey's personality. Put a lot of impact behind Batman's attacks.
It's just not your day, pal.
The spider sense probably should have done something, but I still love that moment. Again, spider sense. Well, there you go. Yeah, Batman's really getting the drop on him. Kind of got to disregard the spider sense for that, but, you know. Then we get inside the building, and we see Batman actually use stealth, or try to use stealth to his advantage, which is great. They're trying to be as creative as they can with the camera movements. Budget, of course, is much smaller, but they're trying. It's really dark, but I know we get out of that soon. Yeah, all the bats. That's a cool idea. They're fighting in the air. Yeah. Just nice how, like, Batman, like, he'll just keep coming. Keep getting ya. Yeah, Spider-Man goes through the ringer in this one. Basically up until the end, which I think is coming up now. Yeah, here we go. All the children in the audience, cover your eyes. This is so crazy. Boom!
Sorry about that. Web swing!
I very much do not believe that this is the way they would do this kind of death today. Especially for characters like Batman and Spider-Man. Death Battle has been trying to pay more respect in their deaths, and I'm not saying that, like, a big, bloody, gory death shouldn't be in death battles. Like, I still think they should be. I still think they very much have a place. But especially for characters like Batman and Spider-Man, if they were to done this episode today, I definitely don't think they would have done a death quite like this. Because back in season 1, like, it seemed like part of the goal was, like, how crazy can we make this death? So you know, that's obviously what they were doing there. I still enjoy the death every time I watch it. It's just, it's really crazy to watch and think about what they're trying to do these days. And one more thing I want to say before I keep going is that, as annoying as it may be that, you know, Spider-Man's spider sense realistically might have been able to help him out a little bit more in the fight, I do actually like the direction they took in that Batman was winning for most of the fight, because it really plays into who they are as characters. Like, Spider-Man is a lot more cocky usually, like a lot more talkative. He plays around a little bit before he starts to get serious, whereas Batman, if he's fighting someone that's not, like, much more powerful than he is, he still has ways to control the fight. Like, he has a lot of gadgets, he has that stealth on his side if he can use that, a lot of combat experience. Like, to me, that directly plays into who these characters are, how they approach fights. Like, I assume that's what Death Battle was going for, because again, you know, like, I'm not sure if they would normally have one character, like, almost dominating throughout the whole time, but I think that's what they were going for, and I do appreciate it. Even if it's not super realistic to who the characters are, like, I think that was still a good move. Yeah, one more time for those those in the back.
Despite Batman possessing more skill and knowledge, Spider-Man's abilities ultimately overpowered his arsenal.
To be fair, Bats might have been able to deal with Spidey's strength and speed, but that damn spider sense changes everything.
Right, the spider sense counters surprise and stealth, Batman's most valuable weapons.
This is another major part of the video that really got me hooked on this show as a whole, because when I realized that this is what they were trying to do, like, really try to figure out who would win in a fight, I was thinking that Batman was gonna win. Now, I was young, you know, I was a little naive, so don't give me too much crap, but back then, I was going in thinking that Batman was gonna win. I had my own reasons for it, and then when Spider-Man won, it did surprise me, but then as they went into and talking about the conclusion, and they were talking about the spider sense, like, it actually actively changed my mind. Like, I was thinking, like, oh yeah, like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm surprised I didn't think about that before. And that kind of encouraged me to start thinking about things more critically and thinking, like, okay, well, they gave me some new insight into this fight that I really didn't think about before for some reason. Could they do that with more episodes? So I think the fact that they actually changed my mind to an extent is part of the reason, again, why I love watching Death Battle, because, you know, as much as I try to be the best I can in terms of analyzing things and, you know, looking at characters, I always know that there is a good chance that Death Battle will see things in a different way, and, you know, that might change my mind. It might not, but it might still change my mind, you know? So I think the fact that it happened so early for me is part of the reason why I'm so hooked in this fight, or hooked on the series, and how they do it the way that they do it.
But how could Batman lose to a wimpy spider nerd when he defeated the entire Justice League.
Yeah,
on
and
his
now
own.
obviously we
Many
go
of
back to
Batman's
the whole
greatest
like
achievements
plot
have required
armor
weeks
or
months of
prep
preparation
time
and
stuff.
planning, which can hardly be compared to the one-on-one confrontation of a death battle. Keep in mind, if we had given Batman
this
prep
kind of
time, the
established
same
like a
would be
big
done for
precedent
Spider-Man.
for other
And all
battles
of
too,
Wayne's
like
money and
outright.
the Commissioner's men couldn't put Batman together again.
The winner is
I do like that.
Spider-Man.
It's not really a pun, but like I do enjoy that. So yeah, that was Batman versus Spider-Man. That was fun to watch. Like again, I've watched this a few times and it is really hard for me to try to give like any sort of deep opinions on this episode when a lot of my enjoyment comes from nostalgia and just loving these characters as a whole. But I did still really enjoy watching this. My enjoyment is undeniable for this episode. I think that especially for the time that it came out, it is a very, very well-rounded episode. There are not that many individual aspects of the episode that I think slack in terms of the budget. Like, you know, they still go over a lot of information, as much information as they can, whether that's from a quantity perspective like Batman or a quality perspective like Spider-Man. Like, I think that they really tried their best in making sure they went over enough information. Like I said before, going over enough things that maybe not all of the casual viewers or casual consumers of these characters know about. Like, trying to show, like, yeah, we did go into like a lot of the comics and we did want to share some of these things with you that you might not have known. Like, I do think that was good. And there are times again where they do remain more vague, like maybe more vague than I would have preferred, but still, like, they're still trying their best, you know, like the budget and the time, like, you can't compare it to stuff that they do these days, you know? And that's the thing, like, there are some episodes where some people are like, oh, you know, it's crazy that an episode that came out this early is better than these episodes that they're doing today. And sure, that might be true for some episodes. Like, there are some episodes in season 2 or whatever that are, like, really, really good, like, crazy good, even by today's standards. But there are some episodes like this one. Like, I do think that this is a good example of this, where if Death Battle were to make an episode of this quality in every way, nowadays, it would unanimously be considered the weakest of the season because it doesn't have things that episodes are just expected to have these days. It could never have a track of its own. It couldn't have like the crazy good editing that the episodes have today, or the length of the analyses, the in-depth nature of the analyses. It could never have any of that, you know? So I do feel like for some people that is kind of rooted in nostalgia. It's certainly rooted in nostalgia for me in terms of how much I enjoy this episode. But in terms of looking at this episode, like when it came out, like going back to the time period, thinking like everything that came out beforehand and all that, like I think for its time, this is one of the best episodes of season 1. I will still hold to it. I still think it is a great episode for its time. Obviously, compared to today, there are so many ways that the episodes nowadays are just more polished, like in every way, but I still really enjoy this episode for what it is. And you know, I don't know if it's my favorite Batman episode. Like, I certainly like it more than Captain America and Black Panther. You know, Batman versus Iron Man exists, and there's a lot of work that went into that one. I still really enjoy that episode. I know that's not a super popular opinion. I know some people don't really like it, but I still really enjoyed that one. But I think in terms of like raw enjoyment, again, the nostalgia is a powerful force. Like, it really does pull this episode forward for me. I do really enjoy it. And as much as, you know, I do appreciate how Death Battle has been talking about other Spider-Man characters like Miguel and Miles and Gwen, I would like to see Peter Parker himself come back too, because there's a lot of cool stuff that they could talk about for Spider-Man that they just couldn't get into for this kind of episode. And they've talked about Batman 4 times. Like, they've had enough time to talk about everything they want to talk about for him. But I think if Spider-Man was given that same treatment and they went into so much more detail about what he can do and the craziness that is, you know, that has taken over his life, like, I think that would be so cool to talk about. So I would like to see Peter come back anyway. I don't know if I'd want to see this episode, like a rematch of this episode, unless they were directly doing something different, like if they were compositing the characters or something. Like something along the lines of the new Goku versus Superman, obviously. Like, it would need to be different. But I think my actual preference would be like a remastered version of this episode, like where they throw the outcome out the window because it's kind of pointless to talk about it, in my opinion at least, especially when you think about other episodes that they've done. But I think if they were just like throwing that out the window and saying like, okay, we're going to try to analyze both Batman and Spider-Man to the best of our abilities again, you know, and with this new budget and the new time that we have, like, I think that'd be really cool. Again, it would be bringing Batman back again, but aside from that, like, I really wouldn't have an issue with that. It's nothing I'm craving for or anything, but I do think it would be cool. I think seeing how they would handle this kind of battle, especially with characters that I love, like, I would love to see how they do it. Nothing I'm itching for, but, like, I would definitely not be opposed to it whatsoever. And yeah, no, I still love these characters. Spider-Man is like my favorite superhero in the world. Batman, one of my favorite superheroes in the world. I do love everything that they stand for, everything that they can do, everything that they've overcome. Like, very, very important characters to me. And, you know, it doesn't surprise me at all that they wanted to do this episode as early as they wanted to do it. And yeah, part of me thinks, oh, you know, like, it'd be so cool if they just did it today instead of 12 years ago or 11 years ago or whatever. But I still think, again, for the early times of Death Battle, I think this episode rocks. I really do. So I don't have that much to complain about it, because there are some things this episode could never have, and all the things that it could have, I think it did have. So I do very much appreciate that. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this. Again, I don't know, you know, if you guys enjoy this kind of thing, but I thought for my first episode ever, I should try to give a little more attention to it. I thought this would be a cool way to do that. If you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, though, I'm still happy if this is just the one I make, because this is still a very special episode to me. But either way, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, comment your comments down below, subscribe if you could too. That would be amazing. That would really help the channel out. But no matter what you guys do, thank you all so much for watching. And that's it for me. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.